Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the current status of FGO. Namely, where I think Aniplex can improve on, and sort of their goals for what they should be trying to accomplish in 2022 if they want to make the game better. Now, again, it doesn't mean that they don't already have plans for some of these things. These are just sort of, as I see it, some of the issues in FGO that really need to be worked on. So let's go ahead and take a look. So on screen here, I've got a laundry list of things that you guys can see that I would like Aniplex to improve upon. Now, again, I'm going to go through these and explain some of these because some of these might be a little bit odd to you, or they maybe will seem a little bit weird, but I'll let you know sort of my motivations behind each of these. So for the first thing on this list, I think we can really target the servant coins as a big issue right now in FGO. It's no secret that Delightworks and Aniplex have added these new systems to the game, append systems, grailing to level 100 and beyond, and then obviously grail casting that now use these servant coins. And they've told us before that they will talk about these more at a later date, but that happened back at Anniversary 6, and we still, as of 6 months later, haven't really heard anything on that front. We've seen them give out servant coins for stuff like welfares, but we realistically don't really have a good way of getting coins for anybody who is 4-star and higher outside of just rolling the gacha. You can certainly get a certain amount of coins from Bond, but realistically that's not going to be enough to meet most of your goals for a unit if you want to unlock either all of their appends or perhaps grail them beyond 100. So this is a big issue to me in the game at the moment, and it's something that I think they probably already have plans for. I've talked about this in other videos, that they're probably going to end up eventually giving us another source of coins. For me personally, I'd like to see that come from events, but I really don't care if they put it in anything. They could put it in our training grounds now that they've improved. They could end up putting it in lotto boxes. I don't care so long as they give us another source. I'd probably prefer if it was somewhat restrictive if I were the developers, so that way we don't have players just, again, farming hundreds of lotto boxes and eating up any sort of actual requirement that there would be. Instead, I would somewhat limit it, but that's fine. I think events would give them that way to easily limit it and restrict it and control it, but still provide an influx of the servant coins so that you guys can finish off units that you maybe didn't have a other way of getting coins for. Maybe they were hard to gacha for. They don't get banners very often. Maybe you already had them max bonded and you didn't have any sort of way to get more. So this helps solve some of those issues. It also would help offset at least some of the issue with the grail casting system and how many coins it's going to consume. So I think this is a really good first area of concern for them. From there, I'd like to talk about the pity system here. Now, I have on here that pity shouldn't reset, but there's a lot of ways they could do this. I think the pity system at the rate that it is at is actually fine and very comparable to a lot of other gacha games out there. My issue at play here is that the pity system can still be better. I see the fact that it resets whenever a banner rotates. I see the fact that it doesn't get preserved between the banners. And while I understand that probably that latter one is very hard to do, since the way this pity system works is when you roll the rate up unit, it resets. There's no opportunity to get pity then on that banner. I still think there's some better common sense changes they can make to make it better, including not making it reset when the banner itself rolls into, just another variant. Let's say you have like the Valentine's Day banner, or again, your New Year's banners or something like that are maybe rotating through. You should be able to keep your progress towards a certain unit's pity at minimum to me, and that it also could be something that they could do over time where maybe you end up rolling some for a unit, but you don't quite reach pity and you don't get the unit, and their banner ends. But maybe we could have it where when that banner does come back, maybe months or even years down the line, the game remembers how much you've rolled and keeps that progress towards that unit. And that would allow you to at least sort of slowly work your way towards certain units. But again, it probably depends on what their goals are for the pity system and how much they want to help you out. But I think at least making it not reset within its own banner would be a good change to start with. Next up is the FP. As you guys are aware, again, the new grail casting system is putting a big strain on servant coins, but it's also causing us to basically have to roll out all of our FP. For those of you guys that are hoarding it, or maybe you've just gotten a lot from your lottos, rolling out your FP can be very time consuming. And while I think there's other ways they can speed this process up, again, allowing for better inventory management, perhaps with whenever you're making craft essence bombs, allowing you to have that same sort of 2-click to add a 20 stack feature that leveling servants has with their embers. Maybe we could get that for craft essences and that would help out. But ultimately, I think an easy way that they can address this is to maybe give us a bigger way to roll out our FP. Maybe instead of a 10 roll, we actually get a 100 roll. That way, instead of rolling 2,000 FP at a time, you're actually rolling 20,000 out. It would really drastically speed that rate up. Again, maybe if you didn't have room, or maybe if you didn't have the FP, it wouldn't allow you to roll the whole 100 stack. Instead of say 100, you would maybe get 67 or something like that. You would just not get the whole capability for that one time, but it would allow you to roll it out in faster batches. And again, make this process way less tedious, way less time consuming. This is a big thing that I'm going to notice going forward that a lot of people will probably begin to complain about as they have to roll out their FP on a more regular basis for stuff like the Grail casting system. This next one is a little bit of low-hanging fruit. It gets talked about a lot, and I do think they are currently planning on doing something for this, but it is the quick system in the game. The quick cards need more support options. Now, a lot of people will focus on, the 5-star and say, hey, there should be an alternative to Scotty. Maybe we should get a Castoria-like servant for quick who charges the party. It'd make them more adaptable to our 90+ nodes and our weird sort of node setups that quick doesn't really do too well with at the moment. Make it more efficient, make it way more easily able to start from 0% charge, open up the door for CEs and event CEs and stuff like that to allow quick to be way more desirable to the average player base. So that certainly can be a thing. Maybe we can get another 5-star alongside Scotty, but I'm also going to say that we do need some more options for our low-star units. Quick doesn't really have anything amongst the 3-star and lower units. There are units that can buff Quick down there, like Alexander, but we don't really have a Shakespeare. We don't really have a Mozart or any of those types of units for Quick. So that's more what I see is, hey, you can give us the 5-star option to help Quick out, but we could also use some low-star variants, some new low-star units to really help expand Quick's capability and usability for newer and more free-to-play focused accounts. For this next one, I've said too that I wouldn't mind this being a thing, and what I'm talking about with mix and match ascensions and NP animations is we've often talked about having the ability to sort of change up parts of a sprite. People will ask for the armor to be changed. Maybe we can get the armor from Ascension 1 for Ascension 2 and that sort of stuff. I'm a-okay with that, but I also realize that that's probably difficult for the developers to do, at least in terms of coding, at least in terms of interface options for the player. But I wouldn't mind something where maybe where you choose the Ascension form that they're displayed in, maybe we can also get the ability to choose separately from that our Noble Phantasm animation. That way for units that do have multiple Noble Phantasm animations, we can instead, mix and match them with their type. That should allow a little bit more customizability and for players to be happy. I see this all the time where they say, oh man, I really like Ascension 3, but the first form's NP animation is the one that I really like to use. So they often have a conundrum of what they pick, or maybe they end up having to set it in random for that to work. And that can still be options, but this could also certainly help out. And again, I'm looking for more customization options that I think could really liven things up for the player base. The next one here is the Fou Paw Print acquisition rate should be doubled, and it should really be doubled with an asterisk there because I think it could be even more than doubled. So this sort of came up when we were doing the survey recently on JP. I had forgotten that JP had done this, but they had increased the amount of Faux Paw Prints that you can buy in the Rare Prism shop from 1 to 3. My issue with this is entirely that it takes you 2.5 years to Faux Paw Print any unit from start to finish for all of their cards to 500 if you're free to play. if you are sitting there and you have rare prisms to spare, you can certainly get your Faux Paw Prints faster, especially now after that change. But the fact remains that Faux Paw Prints are one of the slowest gimmicks in the entire game as far as it comes to enhancing your servants and making them more powerful and more unique. 2.5 years is way too long. If we consider the fact that the devs have said that they have at least a 10-year plan for FGO, we're looking at, again, maybe you get, 3 or 4 units at best done in that time. That's a little bit ridiculous considering how frequently now we can get grails with the grail casting system, how much we can enhance servants with our command codes. Faux Paw Prints just seem to be lagging way behind, and maybe they plan to do something more with them in the future, but for right now, the rate of acquisition of this is pretty pitiful. You get most of them just from your weekly login. Again, I log in every day, and it still takes 2.5 years. So they could drastically speed this up and please a lot of players, while also providing an increased QP sync into the game, which is primarily what the Faux Paw Prints serve as. Now, the next one here is one that I have talked about a lot on my channel, and that's that 4-star tickets need to return. The devs have been very generous. They have given us SSR tickets now. We not only got 1, but 2 in the history of FGO. But since those SSR tickets have come out, there have been no 4-star tickets. The last one that came out was over 2 years ago now at this point, and I think the devs probably look at this as, oh, well, the SSR ticket is more, it's better, it's a higher rarity, so clearly the player base is happy. But I think to say that, they're probably overlooking the need for the 4-star ticket and the purpose that it actually serves. 4 stars are not 5 stars. They are lower rarity, but they're also cheaper in terms of party costs. So they're still good for a lot of reasons. We can't just run all 5 stars in our parties. And a lot of 4 stars are really good, or again, waifu or husbando for somebody else that really wants them. They're often very fickle with how they give these 4 stars banners over time, just like they are with the 5 stars, but to a degree even worse in some cases. So this would be nice to get our 4-star tickets back. You could still find ways to make them better. You could try, allowing some limiteds in, maybe bracketing them in some way, shape, or form, because there's so many 4 stars out there. I don't care how you do it. Just bring the 4-star tickets back. Give the players this much needed service, because it does serve to allow players to acquire older units or hard to get units that they really want. The next one is actual account-based security options. Now you might stop and think, wait, CAD, this is already a thing. You can already bind your account to your iTunes and Google Play accounts. That is true. I would like to see this more done on the actual Aniplex side. One of these reasons to do this is it allows them to give out account-specific rewards. It allows them to do things outside of the App Store marketplaces and such like that. This would allow you to move off of that and that dependency on that, move more towards maybe a possible PC client in the future. Also, perhaps free up some extra money where they're not having to pay the App Store nearly as much of a cut, and thus perhaps provide more deals on actual quartz packs. Maybe they can make it so that whaling in the game becomes a little bit cheaper because they're able to save more money not having to pay the App Store that cut. So I don't know, that could be an issue, but then also I feel like still the security in the game, even with it being tied to your account, is a little lackluster. So I feel like maybe if they actually do this on their own end, this would be pretty good and allow us maybe some more options, maybe some more ease of transfer, and allow us to maybe even play on multiple devices from the same account. I think that is probably the biggest point I could make for a system like this, is it would be very cool not to have to use transfer codes all the time and risk getting it wrong, risk losing something, or, again, just even the cumbersome annoyance of having to restore from a backup on your account. If we're able to play from multiple devices at the same time, this really makes the game a lot more accessible, a lot more user-friendly, and I think would make it so that players are more happy. Now, for this one, upgrades for old welfares and summer units, we've started to see them do this some. We actually have seen some upgrades to our old welfares. Gray, for instance, just got an upgrade with case files, and that is fantastic. They need to keep this up. They need to find more ways to give this. I can look back at the upgrades to the Ellies that they gave out with the Halloween trio event and say, well, it is nice that they got an upgrade. A lot of those upgrades were to a degree lackluster or missed their mark, so they can still do better about this even though they're already doing this. And then the summer units have woefully been neglected for a long time. Some of them have gone long times without banners. One of my waifus in particular, Squirtoria. So it's definitely an issue that is close to home for me. But still, I think they're not really upgrading the summer units very often. I think they're mostly trying to leave them behind and replace them, and that's a bad sign. Summer units are very loved, very desired by a lot of people. Improving them is just going to get them even more money when they bring back a banner for them. So while you could add competition for them and again try to put more units out there that are non-summer and not as restrictive, I still think it's not a good idea for them to neglect the summer units entirely. They've got to revisit this. Hopefully, maybe again, we start seeing a change to that main interlude type system. We start seeing a rerun of summer events and maybe the return of old welfares and banners. And then in the process, they can also give them upgrades. But this is definitely something I'm looking for them to do in the future. And I think this would be a big win for them if they do. So this one has been pretty apparent to me, both with the Bond Grails coming into the game as well as the upgrade to Bond 15. But I've always felt like getting to Bond 15 was very lackluster and didn't do a whole lot for you. Sure, you got quartz. Sure, nowadays you also get servant coins from it. But I think they really need to increase the rewards. Who knows, maybe one day they're going to allow us to get to Bond 20. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate too much on that. The one thing I can point to in the entire bonding system and say that it's absolute garbage is the way the bond Cs work. Now, if you're a support, if you are Herc, or if you are Georgios, or a couple other select units, you have a good bond C. It works for you. You're able to provide some usefulness to the party. The problem that I have is the vast majority of bond Cs for everybody else are basically pointless. Part of the reason with that is that they give us only 100 attack and 100 HP on each of them, and thus as a result your normal average everyday CEs are just flat out better. They can be improved, they can provide more firepower, and they cease to allow the bond CEs to be actually good or useful in any way. So I understand the fact that they don't probably want to replace their normal craft essences out there in the gacha and stuff. They still want to give you a reason to roll and a reward for doing so. That's fine, but they need to find ways to improve the bond Cs, either by virtue of improving those stats. Maybe instead of 100 for each, maybe it's 1,000 or even the 2,000 for each, but that might make them a little too strong. So they could do that, or maybe they could add some additional effects. Perhaps it gives you, an increase to friend points when you use them. Perhaps it gives you an increase to bond points for everybody else in the party when you use them. Maybe that way, when you're finished bonding them, when you get them all the way to Bond 15, or maybe if they're stuck at Bond 10, you actually get some overflow to the other units and it speeds up how they work. We've already seen them putting in those bond lamps, those teapots basically that they have in the game. And they can certainly increase the bond via that. That is a new gimmick, and I am interested to see what they do with it. But hopefully this leads to something more in the bond CE department, because ever since they've been implemented, they have just been very underwhelming, and they really got to work on these for the vast majority of units. Not for the units that have really good ones, we're well aware of those. For the other units who are just frankly neglected at this point. Now, next up, we end up having fine-tuning the support system and friends lists. They've mentioned their desire to do this already. An interview with Mr. 2 around Anniversary 6 mentioned that they were already making changes, and some have already come. We've gotten the triple support lists, we've gotten more friend slots, so this is largely improving. But I would like to see them fine-tune both the way that the triple support lists work, maybe relax some of the restrictions, but that's on them. I still think they work fine for the most part. But especially with regards to the friends lists, I think we can be better about how people show up in the list. With how many friends you can now have on your friends list on JP, it gets pretty ridiculous when you're looking for that one friend sometimes to get them to show up, especially if we're in a high refresh event like a lotto, or again a raid where people are constantly refreshing their supports or relogging in. It gets very difficult to find those people that you rely on, those people that have what you need. And so perhaps what they could do is they could make it so that the filters are a little bit better and that whatever it is you're filtering for has a higher chance of showing up. Maybe they could make it so that you could designate certain friends on your lists as more desired so that they show up more. But I get that they also want to make sure that there's a benefit to being on someone's friends list, and they want to make it at least random to make it fair to everybody else. So that's fine. I just would rather see them actually do a little bit more here, just to give, again, a little bit more of a ease of use and not make it as frustrating whenever you need to find that one guy. So here we get better interaction with the community, and better interaction with the community has been an issue with Aniplex for a long time. We can blame a lot of this on COVID lately and the inability for them to host as many live events, though they are starting to get back to that now. I still think FGO largely has a problem with how it does communicate with the community. Essentially, the developers are very tight-lipped on everything, and that's fine. I understand this, but they can do a better job. NA has started to have some improvement there with some of the dev diaries to let us know what's happening on our end, since things are at least somewhat unique now that they're not necessarily following everything one-to-one. But I could also stand for them to be better about it on JP. They could certainly give us more dev diaries there. They could try to instead maybe have more interviews that they give out. So instead of just doing one every single year at the anniversary, they could try to do them quarterly, or perhaps even just one more at New Year's even. Because on top of the live streams, I think it's important to sort of hear the perspective of the devs and where they want the game to go, and that they're in touch with the issues that are currently facing the community. We don't have to always agree with them. They don't have to be, super in touch with us, but it helps to have these sort of points of interaction in order to make it feel like they do care about you and that they are listening. So I think better interaction with the community is something that they have needed to improve on every single year, and no matter how many times they do improve on it, I could almost always put it back here for the next year. And now for the last one. This was a question on our survey recently on JP, but the rate of the main story needs to be increased. I am fine with us getting story that's impactful and amazing and funny and dramatic at points. We definitely get a lot of that in events. We definitely get a lot of that in our 0.5 stuff, but it's been no secret that the Lost Belts have slowed way down themselves. The main big goals are fights against the cryptors and our fights against the Lost Belt trees, and all of that should be accelerated. Why? Because the fact that they're drawing it out tells me that they don't want to end part 2. They want to milk it for all that it's worth, and that is perfectly fine to do so, but it worries me about what they're going to do beyond that. Now, the devs have infamously said that if there is a desire to do more at the end of part 2, they will. They already have an idea about what they would do for a 2.5. It actually comes from a Nasu interview during Ani 5. So it's from Nasu himself saying that, even though he's also said that, part 2 is going to be the end and yada yada yada. So we'll see. I am looking forward to the future of this game, and we do know from Mr. Two's own mouth that they have a 10-year roadmap. So unless they plan on stalling out part 2 until year 10, which I don't think they are, I certainly think it's got to come to an end. So I'd rather it end and we can move on. I'd rather there be a part 2.5 and a part 3.0 later on, because for right now, I think they're worrying some of the community with the rate at which they're going. Everything appears to be stally, everything appears to be dragged out, and I'd rather instead of that, they actually got back to the pace that they were at back in years like 3 and 4 there. Even year 4 got to be a little bit of the stall there and sort of what caused a lot of the delays, but I'd still like to see them sort of get back to the pace they were at, start releasing multiple story chapters a year, and not just by the 0.5 chapters in the events that somehow tie in through some sort of tangent. I want to see more main story. That's what really grips us. That's what really keeps us coming back for more. And I think it's the ultimate thing that drives the popularity of this game. Again, I hope you liked my points. What did you think of my thoughts? Let me know if there's anything you think I missed or what you'd like to see improved. Again, I think FGO is a fantastic game. I'm really optimistic about the future for it, but there's definitely some points that need to be improved on, and I'm hoping that Delightworks and Aniplex listen to us over time. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you for the next one. Don't forget, you can always check me out on Twitch. You can always join that Discord and be part of the community there. But again, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps the video out. Later, guys.